All right, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the Genomepatri Health and Ancestry Combo.
Oh, sounds interesting.
It is, and it's a little different than what you might think of when you hear DNA test.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's not just about tracing your family tree. It also delves into your health. They say it gives over 100 health insights.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive. So, more than just finding out where your great-great-grandparents came from?
Exactly. We're talking predispositions to certain conditions, potential medication reactions, even things like how your genes might affect your diet and fitness.
So it's like getting a personalized health blueprint, sort of.
Yeah, and to help people make sense of all that info, they even include a genetic counseling session with the combo.
Oh, that's a smart move. Because I can imagine just getting a report full of genetic data could be kind of overwhelming.
Right. Like, what do you do with all that info?
Yeah.
So having an expert to walk you through it is a huge GE plus.
Definitely. So is this combo like two separate tests then?
It's actually two components under one umbrella. They're called Genomepatri Health and Genomepatri Heritage.
Okay, so I'm guessing health is the part that focuses on all those personalized insights we were talking about.
You got it. It analyzes your DNA for all sorts of things, like are you predisposed to certain health risks, or are you a carrier for any genetic conditions, even like I said, how your body might react to certain medications.
Makes sense. And what about the heritage component?
That's where they dive into your ancestry. And they use this really cool tech called SNP mapping to get super precise results.
SNP mapping, I'm not familiar with that.
So basically it allows them to look at very specific points in your DNA and compare them to a massive database to figure out where your ancestors came from.
Huh, that's pretty neat. And how big is this database they're using?
It's huge, over 20,000 records. So it's not just giving you these broad strokes like, oh, you're European.
Right, you want specifics.
Exactly. It can break down your ancestry to really specific regions, sometimes even down to the village level, which is pretty amazing.
Wow, that's impressive. So all of this from just one little DNA sample.
Yep, they use one saliva sample for both the health and the ancestry analysis, which is super convenient.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody wants to be spitting into multiple tubes.
No kidding. So the process seems pretty straightforward. You order the kit, it gets delivered in a couple of days, you collect your sample, pack it up, and send it back. They even have a pickup option, I think, and then you get your results emailed to you in a few weeks.
Sounds pretty streamlined. So how much does all of this cost?
Right now, the combo is going for ours, $22,999. Though there is something to keep in mind.
What's that?
It's a recurring purchase. But, I mean, you could also look at it as an investment in your health and well-being, right?
True, true. It's not just a one-time thing. Your health is an ongoing journey.
And speaking of how people feel about it, they actually have some really glowing customer reviews online.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, one guy, Ankish E, said the combo gave him a complete picture of both my health and ancestry, which seems to be a common sentiment.
I can see why. What else?
There's a physician, Dr. Mohd Arif, who was really impressed. He said the ancestry part especially opened up new insights, even gave him a sense of belonging, which is pretty powerful.
It is. So not just clinical data, but also a sense of personal connection.
Yeah, and he even commented that the whole process was really hassle-free and prompt. So
Mhm.
overall, it sounds like people are getting a lot out of this combo.
I'm starting to see why. It's more than just a test. It's like a whole new way of understanding yourself.
Exactly. So now that we've got a handle on what it is and how it works,
Mm.
the big question is WAY. Like, why is it so important to know both your health predispositions and where your ancestors came from? What's the connection?
That's where it gets really interesting. Well, think of it this way. Knowing you might be predisposed to, say, vitamin D deficiency is one thing, but then if you find out through the ancestry part that your family hails from a region with, like, super limited sunlight.
Oh, that makes total sense. Suddenly
Yeah.
it all clicks into place, right?
Exactly. It's not just isolated data points anymore. It's understanding how your genes have been shaped by, like, the environments and lifestyles of your ancestors.
And that could be huge GE for making health choices today, right? Like, what if you learn heart disease runs in the family and your ancestors came from a place where, I don't know, their diet was heavy on saturated fats or something?
Exactly. That might just be the nudge you need to make some serious lifestyle changes. It's about connecting those dots. And that's where the genetic counseling session can be so valuable.
Right. Because it's not just about getting this report. It's about having someone to, like, really walk you through what it all means, specifically for you.
Absolutely. I mean, some of this stuff can get pretty complex. It's easy to misinterpret things or feel overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure. So having an expert there to answer questions and guide you, that can make a world of difference.
It really can. They can also help you understand the limitations of the test, too. It's important to remember that these are predispositions, not guarantees.
Right. It's not like a crystal ball or anything.
Nope. And a lot depends on environmental factors, too, how those genes actually express themselves.
So it's more like, okay, here's some potential areas to be mindful of, maybe get ahead of.
Exactly. A roadmap, but with some interesting detours based on where your ancestors have been.
I like that. It's like a personal A&D historical narrative all rolled into one.
That's what's so cool about it. It's not just you looking back. It's about using that info to shape your future.
Right. Like maybe knowing lactose intolerance was common in your family line helps you understand why dairy's always been a problem.
Exactly. And then you're more likely to look into other sources of calcium or whatever you need.
Or maybe finding out your ancestors were nomads who lived on a mostly plant-based diet.
Could inspire you to try eating more fruits and veggies yourself, right?
Yeah. It's crazy how these insights can, spark curiosity about things you never even considered before.
It's like it shows you your health isn't just your journey. It's a continuation of a story that's been going on for generations.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's be real for a sec. What about privacy? I mean, you're handing over some pretty sensitive info to a company.
Oh, that's definitely a valid concern. And it seems like iMeUsWe has taken it seriously from what I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've got all these advanced systems. They say they comply with all the standards. And they've got lots of security measures in place to protect your data.
So it sounds like you can feel pretty good about, the ethical side of things.
I think so. They've been very transparent about their processes, so you can focus on what matters, which is exploring your own unique blueprint and using that to live a healthier, more fulfilling life.
Makes sense. We talked about S&P mapping earlier, but I'm still not totally clear on how it works.
Oh, sure. So it all boils down to these things called SNPs. They're like tiny variations in our DNA sequences,
Okay.
and they act as little markers that differentiate us from each other.
So these SNPs are what make our DNA unique.
Exactly. And the thing is, some SNPs are more common in certain populations. So by analyzing your SNPs and comparing them to this huge database.
That's how Genomepatri figures out where your ancestors came from, and also any potential health risks.
Exactly. Each tiny variation is like a little clue.
That's so cool. It really, each one tells a story about us.
It is. And the more we learn about these SNPs, the more we understand about human history, how our genes connect to our health, to our ancestry. It's all linked.
No wonder that doctor we were talking about earlier was so impressed. It's not just data, it's a story,
Yeah.
As us as individuals, but also as a species.
Exactly. It's about seeing that bigger picture, how we fit into the grand scheme of things, and then using that knowledge to live, healthier, more meaningful lives.
Totally. So as we start wrapping up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. It really makes you think differently about, what health even is,
Totally. It's not just about treating symptoms. It's about understanding, the root causes and how those might connect to your ancestry.
Yeah. It's personalized health on a whole other level.
It is. And it's not just physical either. Knowing where you come from can give you insights into cultural practices, traditions.
Oh, yeah, like things that might be passed down in your family.
Exactly. It's like your family tree becomes more than names and dates. It's habits, ways of life, stuff that might still be affecting you now.
Wow. It's like this combo is almost like a time machine then, right?
I like that. It connects you to the past. A&D helps you navigate the present, even the future.
It does. It really does. And that brings us to the big takeaway, I think. It's not just about satisfying your curiosity about your family.
No, it's about actually using that knowledge to make better choices, live healthier, even feel a deeper connection to where you come from.
So it's like an individual journey A&D part of something much bigger.
Exactly. So as we wrap up here, I want to leave everyone with one last thought to chew on. What if you found out through this test that your ancestry is totally different from what you always thought?
Ooh, that's a good one. How would that change how you see yourself?
Right. It just goes to show that how we see ourselves, it's always evolving.
It is. And sometimes these tests can really challenge our assumptions, make us see things in a whole new light.
For sure. And at the end of the day, it reminds us that we're all part of this much larger story, one that's been unfolding for centuries.
And by learning about our own DNA, we're not just learning about ourselves, we're adding to that story.
We are. So whether you're into the health side, the ancestry, or just figuring out who you are, these tests offer a pretty incredible glimpse into what makes us human.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So that wraps up our deep dive into the Genomepatri Health and Ancestry Combo. Hopefully this has gotten everyone thinking, maybe even inspired you to do a little exploring of your own.
I hope so. Because knowledge is power, as they say, and understanding your DNA is like the first step to unlocking your full potential, really.
So why not take the plunge? You never know what you might find.